Assalamualaikum and a very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we welcome you on behalf of Perceptive Learning Zone to the second episode of CSS. In the previous session, we talked about the different preparation tips as well as the structure of the exam. And today, I will answer some commonly asked or some frequently asked questions on this domain. And then we will sort of discuss how to enhance our probability of acing this exam, which is more of a psychological challenge than it is in the physical sort of capacity. A question is very commonly asked that what is the difference between the CSS exam as well as the PMS exam? So the CSS exam is conducted by the Federal Public Service Commission, and that is conducted each year to fill the vacant seats in federal civil departments and bureaucracy. So just going to increase the volume, make sure you all can hear me just fine. So the PMS exam on the other hand, so CSS exam जो वो FPSC conduct कर रहे हर साल, जबकि जो PMS exam है, that is being conducted by the respective provincial service commissions. It is not conducted regularly, and the selected candidates, they fill the vacant positions that exist in provincial bureaucracy. Then another question is that what is the CSS exam? I mean, in other words, where do the CSS exam selected candidates, where are they appointed? So those candidates who cleared the stages of the exam and the interview, they are filled in following departments like commerce and trade group. You got customs and excise service. They can get allocation in foreign services of Pakistan. Then there is the income tax group as well as the information group. Along with that, they could sort of navigate towards military lands and cantonment group, office management group, as well as Pakistan Administrative Service, which I've already talked about in the previous session. So it's sort of a review that I'm doing right now. Along with that, they can go for Pakistan Audit and Account Service. They could make for the police sector of Pakistan, Postal Services Group, as well as the Railway Group, which is also known as Commercial and Transportation Group. So we already talked about the fact that the CSS exam comprises of 4 parts: a written examination, then there's a medical examination, followed by a psychological assessment, and finally a viva, aka interview. The subjects for the competitive examination, they comprise of compulsory papers of 600 marks in total and optional papers with a cumulative weightage of 600 marks, which means that on a net scale, aggregately, the total marks of this CSS paper are 1,200, aka 1,200. So another question that is asked at this stage is that what is the age limit of the CSS exam in Pakistan? So the eligible candidates, they must be neither below the age of 21 years nor above the age of 30 years on the cutoff date, जिस दिन आपका इम्तिहान होना है. In short, the age limit is 30 years in the range of 21 to 30. So if you fall in this range, you are pretty much good to go. They say some government employees get a relaxation of 2 years. They can go up to 32, but 21 to 30, that is a pretty safe range as far as giving this exam is concerned. Then another question that is asked at this stage is that what is the minimum qualification that is required to appear in the CSS exam in Pakistan? So a candidate must hold at least a second division or grade C bachelor's degree in any discipline of one of the Pakistani universities or an equivalent degree of a foreign university, which is sort of recognized by the Higher Education Commission. In case a candidate has a third division, or let's say less than a C grade, for example, a D grade in his bachelor's degree, he shall be or she shall be eligible for the comparative examination in cases where they have obtained a higher division or a higher grade in their master's degree. Then how do we apply for the CSS exam in Pakistan? Well, a candidate has to apply online through the FPSC website. It's very self-explanatory. Just type Federal Public Service Commission Pakistan on Google, and it will run you through the entire stages, as well as how to pay the fee, which is generally done in the National Bank of Pakistan. I've already talked about in the last video how to select optional subjects. And just remember one thing I'm going to reiterate, okay? When you select optional subjects, make sure you play to your strengths as well as what you are interested in doing, right? So if you want to go more towards the administrative side, a subject like public administration would do well to you. If you say, you know what, after giving this exam, maybe I don't want to get allocated, I'm just going to start teaching CSS in some academy or something, then you may as well do as you please. Speaking of which, a question is often raised that which degree is best for the CSS exam? Now, there is no specific degree requirement for this exam, ladies and gentlemen. However, if you have done a bachelor's in law or international relations or psychology or sociology, literature or economics, then I feel it will be quite helpful for you during this examination. Then, obviously, another question is asked that is the academy necessary for a CSS exam? Well, let's talk about OA levels, for instance, right? There are so many resources nowadays. For example, if I talk about mathematics, right, you got savemyexams.com, you got subscriptions like the YouTube channels like Zanomatics or Mathlete by Saad, but still you see a lot of people who are enrolling in academies, right? There are two reasons for that. Well, obviously, kids are lazy, right? They just want someone to give them everything on a plate. And secondly, I feel you could easily sit at home and do all these courses yourself, study them yourself. But when you go to the academy, you can seek professional guidance, which you may not always get easily in an online capacity. And secondly, I feel when you go to the academy, you sort of, you sort of identify some compatible peers who are motivated to give this exam and ace it just like you. So you sort of get a good study environment, which can sort of motivate you. Because see, ultimately, it's very important to keep yourself motivated over a long period of time as far as preparing for the examination and the upcoming interviews are concerned. So academy has its plus points. Obviously, at the same time, it's going to cost you more money, petrol, time, etc., etc. So if you're a person who says, you know what, I'm going to stay self-motivated, I don't need someone to, incentivize me to doing something, and I can maintain a professional, disciplined schedule, studying all this online, in that case, you don't need the academy. So ultimately, it comes down to your perspective. Speaking about Lahore, right, some good academies that I know of is Officers Academy. Then there is KIPS Academy. The academy that I really recommend is from where I did my CSS preparation also, right? By the way, I did not give my CSS exam. That's a long story for some other time. But that academy is World Time Institute. So you could access their office and get details about their campus courses. And obviously, I've heard they have some online programs as well. So ultimately, it comes down to what you're comfortable with. I would say do join an academy in the last month or something. It does give you a bit of impetus as far as acing the examination is concerned. Then students talk about, is CSS better than PMS? So CSS is better than PMS because of the fact that, firstly, the CSS exam is conducted every year. Secondly, the CSP officer gets promotion very easily during their service as they have a proper service structure. And last but not least, you get the chance to serve in federal government departments such as income tax, foreign office and inland revenue, and many more. Therefore, on these factors, I feel like CSS is a bit better than PMS, right? Next up, a lot of students ask this question, that is CSS easy or difficult? So the world is not all black and white, ladies and gentlemen. It is full of gray areas. It's very difficult for Muhammad Hamza Nasser to just issue a fatwa or a verdict that in my case, it's easy, or in someone else's case, it's even more easy or it's difficult. You see, ultimately, it comes down to how you react. We live in a society where we see people, we see some people who behave worse than animals. At the same time, we see people who act like saints. So ultimately, it comes down to your decisions, to your mental tenacity and resilience, not just your circumstances. So it's not worthwhile or fair on my part to label any examination or system as easy or difficult or flawed or perfect. Ultimately, it comes down to perspective. So, but if we talk about perspective, during my tenure, when I was preparing for the exam, prior to backing out of it, I would say that I came across certain challenges, regarding which I didn't get a lot of professional guidance to the extent that I wanted to, and I sort of had to deal with these myself. And to those of you who are watching this video and are sort of, on the verge of undertaking this rigorous exam, I would definitely like to talk about those challenges and what I feel are sustainable solutions towards overcoming them. So hopefully you guys don't go through the same dilemma that I encountered a few years ago. So I feel, first of all, a major challenge in CSS is its vast syllabus. It is very open-ended. There was a time when you had like 7 or 8 books, you start from them, and then you're pretty much set to ace the exam. Nowadays, it's a different ballgame. The CSS syllabus is not only extensive, but covers a wide range of subjects, right? Such as history, geography, economics, politics, and many more. This vast syllabus can be overwhelming for many aspirants. So how do you tackle this challenge? I would say, first of all, break down the syllabus into smaller, manageable sections, divide and conquer, ladies and gentlemen. Then prioritize topics based on their weightage in the exams and your familiarity with them. Then create a study schedule that allocates sufficient time for each subject. And finally, regular revision. That is crucial for you to retain what you have learned. There are somewhat like, our brain experiences like 11 million bits of information in the form of sensory experiences every second, out of which at a time we only register 30 or 40 of them. And in the long term, we only retain 2 or 3 of them in our subconscious. So the human brain is ultimately finite, and revision is paramount to keep information in our long-term subconscious that we can access for practical use to serve humanity in the near foreseeable future. Another area I feel that I want to talk about when it comes to challenges in CSS is the information overload. You see, the internet is at our fingertips, and there is an abundance of study material online. This is an advantage, but at the same time, it can also lead to information overload. Aspirants often struggle to filter out the most relevant and reliable sources, and I would say a very good way to sort of avoid this information overload is to, first of all, stick to standard textbooks and recommended online resources. So if you are reading a certain article, and let's say current affairs, after reading 3 or 4 articles, when you go for the 5th article, you'll feel like it's sort of repeating itself or going about the bush or iterating the same point over and over again. So keep a limited range of material. Create a list of trusted sources and follow them consistently. Avoid this temptation, this natural instinct to jump between too many resources. Focus on the depth rather than the breadth of the knowledge. Thirdly, time management. This is an issue in which everyone struggles in. CSS preparation requires consistent and dedicated effort over an extended period. So balancing it with other responsibilities or a job can be challenging. So time management, I feel, is the key to success. To tackle this challenge, I would say create a daily and weekly study schedule that includes specific time slots for each subject, and avoid procrastination. Never delay what can be done today. Don't put it to tomorrow, because procrastination is the thief of time. So set specific goals for each study session and use productivity techniques like the Pomodoro method. The Pomodoro method is you study for 25 minutes and then you take a break of 5 minutes. Then you study, that is one Pomodoro. Second Pomodoro, study 25 minutes, take a break of 5 minutes. After 4 or 5 Pomodoros, take a longer break of, let's say, half an hour or 45 minutes, right? Or you could basically go for the Feynman technique. Feynman technique is that, for example, you are reading a certain article in a newspaper, you underline the main points, make a summary out of it, and you sort of orally recite or read out aloud to yourself, because that way you get to retain what you just learned in the long term for a much greater period of time. Then there's also the SQ3R method, right? You survey, you make questions, you recite, you review, and all that. So the different methods, I would say, is use these productivity techniques to enhance your long-term learning. And I would also say that understand that when you prepare for the exam of CSS, you have to prepare for the multiple stages that I talked about in the previous session: the preliminary exam, the main exam, and the personality test, also known as the interview. So each stage has its unique requirements, and you need to adapt your preparation strategy accordingly. For example, the preliminary exam is objective, whereas the main exam, it comprises of subjective papers. So understand those requirements, don't neglect any stage, give equal attention to all of them, and regularly practice with mock tests and the previous year's question papers. Have a group of ambitious individuals, ask questions to each other, make sure you guys keep each other motivated, stay in tune, stay in rhythm, and hopefully, I wish you all Godspeed. And Also remember, in CSS, you need general knowledge as much as possible. You need to have your grip over current affairs. Watch BBC, CNN, Al Jazeera, read articles by Vox, Visual Politic, right? Have next time you are chilling with a buddy at a certain coffee shop in Lahore, for example, right? Rather than talking about politics or some useless stuff, right? Have a productive conversation about some recent trend that is happening internationally, so that this way you can enhance your uptake of knowledge and you don't just limit your information seeking process just to the library or your study room or whatever. Integrate it, internalize it in your daily life. That's what I would say. Stay updated with current affairs. The dynamic nature of current events can make it a bit challenging to keep up. So what you can do is you can dedicate a specific time each day to read newspapers and magazines. Take notes on important current events. Make a habit of summarizing news articles, right? You got some summarizing tools. I won't recommend them. I would say try to do it yourself. Join current affairs classes or discussion groups to stay updated and discuss relevant topics, right? And lastly, I would say, in fact, second last, is that CSS exam is a test of nerves. It's all about dealing with pressure and stress. I always talk about the fact that, you know, happiness is something that must not be pursued. It is something that must ensue as a result of you identifying your purpose and trying to achieve that purpose. And how do you find your purpose, right? There are different ways. It could be by creating a certain deed or doing a certain act. You could find purpose by encountering a certain individual in your life or going through a certain experience. And nowadays, I feel a lot of credit is not given to experiencing something, but I feel experiencing can be as therapeutic as achieving, because our society lays a one-dimensional emphasis on the external world of achievement, whereas it tacitly ignores the internal world of experiences. So you could get purpose through your experience. More importantly, you get purpose from dealing towards trials, from dealing with adversity or tribulations in your life. So CSS exam, if you want to be successful, अगर आप इसमें कामयाब होना है तो आपको अपने pressure or stress levels को overcome करना पड़ेगा. The pressure to perform can be immense, right? I'm not judging you. I've been through this phase myself. Aspirants often face anxiety, and this can affect their performance, right? So just don't be paranoid. किसी भी चीज को अपने ऊपर हावी नहीं करना. Understand that everything takes time. You are in your own time zone. Don't procrastinate. Work hard. Great, but at the same time, remember, there's only so much you can do. You're a finite person. So don't be what you call, don't be overwhelmed by certain tasks. Like saying Alcoholics Anonymous made that the neurotic who learns to laugh at himself is on his way to self-management, even cured. So practice relaxation techniques like deep breathing or yoga, maintain, saying your prayers, maintain a healthy lifestyle through regular exercise and a balanced diet. And take regular breaks, spend time on activities that help you unwind and relax, like book reading, playing golf, cricket, hiking, whatever is your cup of tea. And finally, peer pressure. A man is known by the company he keeps. Surround yourself with virtuous and ambitious friends. You surround yourself with people who teach you bad stuff, waste your time in unnecessary activities, right? No good, absolutely no good. So make sure you got a conducive learning environment. You got a positive support system. So surround yourself with a healthy network of friends and family who understand your goals, who won't be judgmental, who will empathize with you. Communicate your aspirations, open up to them and the challenges you face, and focus on your own progress and avoid comparing yourself to others. So the journey might be tough, but yeah, like I said, tough times don't last, but tough people do. So I wish you all the very best of luck, and I'm sure that you guys will do what it is. And look, remember one thing, guys. I mean, if you put in all the hard yards, I worked my heart out, for 6 months preparing for this exam, right? You guys are most welcome to pay me a visit. I can go to my storeroom in the house and show you all the registers that I filled out, right? And despite all that, in the end, it just didn't click to me. So I didn't give the exam, and I opted for a different route instead. And I feel if I'd gone down that route, well, I wouldn't be sitting here trying to give you guys a word or two of advice based on what I've learned over the years. So there's a thing called destiny. However, you need to put in the effort. And if you put in all the effort and still don't want to or are not able to become a bureaucrat, I mean, it's okay. Yeah, there are still so many things that you can do with your life. You have far more options than you would realize. And knowledge never goes astray. So always have the positive mentality. And I wish you all Godspeed. We'll be back with more discussion on CSS as well as other episodes. And take care. Please keep subscribing. And if you have any queries or suggestions or feedback, I'd be most welcome to see it in my comment section. Thank you very much, fellas. Love you all. Godspeed. Assalamu alaikum.